Chapter 1. Mr. Evans, we found her. Your fiancée. The one who disappeared a year ago. I was in my office, trying to finally clear out a backlog of contracts, when my assistant, Megan, burst in. She dropped a manila folder on my desk with a soft thud. I looked at it, then at her, my skepticism a shield. I slid the tab open and pulled out the contents. A few seconds of scanning, and I was just staring. Are you sure this is my fiancée? I asked, my voice flat. Did you get the wrong person? Maybe she just looks like her. Megan gave me a nervous glance, her lips pressed into a thin line. It's definitely her, Cole, she said, her voice dropping. She had a baby with someone else. Silence. The hum of the air conditioner suddenly sounded deafening. 1. I'm an influencer. Or at least I was. A year ago, I got tangled up in some drama with another creator, and my reputation took a nosedive. The internet tried to cancel me before it was even a thing. My management team told me the fastest way to kill the narrative was a classic PR move. Get married to my fiancée, Jenna. A public display of commitment. Proof that I was a one-woman man. All the rumors would evaporate overnight. I proposed to Jenna, and she said yes. I threw a huge engagement party, the kind that gets written up in lifestyle blogs. It was perfect, she cried. I smiled for the cameras, and for a minute, it felt like the plan was working. Then, 2 weeks later, on our wedding day, she told me she couldn't go through with it. I asked her why. She just clenched her jaw and wouldn't say a word. And then, in front of a wall of reporters and phone cameras, dressed in a Vera Wang gown, she ran. That was the day my brand didn't just collapse, it was vaporized. The story on Twitter was that I must have been cheating with the other influencer, and my pure, sweet fiancée couldn't live with the lie. She became a martyr. I became the villain. But you don't hit rock bottom without learning how to bounce. I pivoted. I went from being in front of the camera to being the guy behind it. I launched a talent management agency for digital creators. Using what I'd learned from my own rise and fall, I started finding and building up new talent. It worked. Now, with the business stable, I still hadn't forgotten about Jenna. She owed me an explanation. Megan had been thorough. The file contained Jenna's address, phone number, and a detailed summary of her past year. It was all there. The black Escalade was flying down the I-5, eating up the miles between Los Angeles and whatever small Central California town she'd holed up in. I sat in the back, rereading the file on Jenna, my thoughts a tangled mess. Megan, turn around, I said suddenly. We're not going. Megan, who was driving, was so startled she almost swerved. Mr. Evans? Cole, you don't want to find her anymore. She caught my eye in the rearview mirror, her expression a perfect picture of confusion. I managed a bitter smile. Surprising, right? Her face was a flurry of emotions. She nodded, then quickly shook her head. I let out a long, heavy sigh. Tell me honestly, I asked her. Do I seem like a simp to you? Megan didn't answer. Instead, she flicked on the right turn signal and slowed down, pulling off the freeway into a rest stop with a dingy-looking motel attached. You look exhausted, Cole, she said, deftly avoiding the question. You want me to get you a room here so you can crash for a few hours? I just nodded. Yeah, you decide. Her non-answer was an answer in itself. In her mind, the label was already stuck to me. Simp. I dragged my tired body into the cheap motel room and stepped into the shower, letting the lukewarm water run over me. The past year flashed through my mind, and my mood, already in the gutter, sank even lower. The contents of the folder weren't complicated, just insane. The reason Jenna had ditched me at the altar, humiliating both our families and becoming a trending topic of ridicule, was her first love. Her high school boyfriend. This guy, Kevin, was a real piece of work. He was the last male heir in his family, a fact he seemed to take very seriously. A year ago, he'd started feeling sick, went to the doctor, and got a diagnosis: terminal liver cancer. The doctors gave him months. So what does Kevin do? He starts calling up all his ex-girlfriends, asking them to sleep with him one last time so he can leave a kid behind to carry on the family name. Most of them told him to get lost and called him a psycho. Rightfully so, but not Jenna. Sweet, soft-hearted Jenna didn't say no. Kevin saw an opening and pounced, laying on a full-court press of nostalgia and pity. And just like that, she threw me away. Threw away our life, our wedding, everything, to go play surrogate for her dying ex. Jenna was a kind person. But her kindness was a weapon she'd pointed at her own life. Even now, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why would anyone trade a life of comfort and success to go have a baby with a man who was about to die? That's why, on the freeway, I'd told Megan to turn back. There was no point. It was over. She'd made her choice, and I had my own life to live. The best thing I could do for her, and for me, was to just let it go. I was lying on the stiff motel bed when my stomach started growling. Knock, knock, knock. The sudden sound made me jump. I got up, opened the door, and couldn't help but laugh. How'd you know I was starving? Outside stood Megan, changed into a casual sweatsuit, her hair damp from a recent shower. In her hands, she held a greasy paper bag. The smell of burgers and fries filled the small doorway. Hey, when I'm in a bad mood, I eat my feelings, she said with a grin. Figured you might want to try it. I stepped aside. Come on in. What was absurd was that I had barely finished one fry before Megan had already inhaled half of her burger. Seriously? Aren't you worried about, calories? She shot me a look. What? Is it a crime to have a fast metabolism? I pursed my lips and shook my head. Eat up. Don't choke. Wow. You really know how to charm a girl. No wonder you're single. She handed me a can of some high-octane craft beer. To quote a bad movie, beer is the cause of and solution to all of life's problems. Drink. I took it from her. You are terrible at peer pressure. For the next hour, Megan carried the conversation. She chattered about office gossip, which two creators were secretly dating, how she saw them sneaking into the same apartment complex in West Hollywood. Then she'd pivot to which of the new models we signed had a crush on me, how she always tried to talk to me at company parties, and asked if I was interested. I could set it up, she offered with a wink. Between the alcohol and her deliberate effort to distract me, I actually started to feel better. That craft beer was no joke, though. The kickback was serious. When I woke up again, it was the middle of the night. I lifted a hand to rub my eyes and felt a heavy weight on my chest. I looked down. My drowsiness vanished in a flash. Megan, she was asleep, curled up against me. To avoid an epic level of awkwardness, I shut my eyes and feigned sleep. Just pretend you're out cold, I told myself. When she wakes up, she'll leave on her own. Back at the office, the massive weight I'd been carrying was finally gone. With a clear head, I poured all my energy back into work. Megan, by some unspoken agreement, never mentioned that night at the motel. She was all business. Sometimes, though, I catch myself glancing over at her, only to find her already looking at me. We'd both quickly look away, a silent, clumsy attempt to diffuse the tension. A strange, sweet feeling was starting to bloom in the space between us. Life settled into a peaceful routine, until the day Jenna showed up at my door with her parents. It was a Friday night. Megan had stayed late to get me to sign off on an urgent contract. Afterwards, I offered to buy her dinner. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door of my condo. I opened it and froze. It was Jenna, and, to my utter shock, her parents were standing right behind her. Jenna, I said, my voice barely a whisper. She tilted her head and gave me a playful smile. What, you don't recognize me after only a year? With that, she pushed past me and walked right into my home. Her parents followed, smiling as if this was a perfectly normal family reunion. A second later, I heard Jenna's furious voice from the living room. Cole, who is she? What is she doing in our house in the middle of the night? Megan looked mortified. I walked over and stood protectively in front of her. Jenna, have you forgotten? We never got married. And this isn't your house. Jenna's face contorted with rage. Not my house. We were engaged. We had a wedding. You're my husband. Cole, this is just too much. Jenna's mother chimed in, rushing to her daughter's side. You're married to my daughter, and you're bringing other women home. I actually laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. Ma'am, is your memory failing you? Yes, we were engaged, but we are not married. On our wedding day, she was the one who ran out on me. Her mom knew she had no ground to stand on and went quiet. Jenna, however, doubled down. I had something really important to do that day, she insisted. Besides, I never said we weren't getting married, did I? How could you bring another woman home? This version of Jenna was a stranger to me, whereas the kind, simple girl I once knew. This person in front of me was a lunatic. I didn't want to deal with them. I pointed to the door. It's late. All of you need to go home. I'm going to bed. Jenna looked stunned. You're telling me to leave? This is my house. Why should I go? If anyone's leaving, it's her. She pointed a trembling finger at Megan. My patience finally snapped. Jenna, I'm going to say this one last time. Please leave. Otherwise, I'm calling the police, and this is going to get ugly for everyone. Jenna's mother crossed her arms and lifted her chin. Cole, this house is partly our Jenna's. Why should she have to leave? The one who should be leaving is that little tramp behind you. Their arrogance was so staggering, it made me wonder if I was losing my mind. We never signed a marriage certificate. I bought this condo with my own money. What did it have to do with her? This attitude, this entitlement, this belief that they could just barge in and take over, made me question if I'd been completely blind the whole time I was with her. That's when her father, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Let me be the voice of reason here, he said calmly. Cole, you're in the wrong today. No matter what, you're still engaged to my daughter. You can't just bring another woman home. He paused, looking magnanimous. We're not unreasonable people. Tell her to leave. Jenna will stay here with you tonight. That was it. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. A family of complete morons. Even after the police arrived and had to repeatedly order them to leave my property, I still couldn't figure out what the hell Jenna was trying to accomplish. The next day at the office, my mom called. She told me she'd heard from Jenna's family. Last night had drained every last drop of goodwill I had for Jenna, so I just gave my mom a few non-committal responses. My dad got on the line. You spent the last year looking for that girl, he boomed. We tried to set you up with other nice women, and you refused. Now she's back, and you're throwing a tantrum. His voice rose to a roar. I don't give a damn who you marry. I just want grandkids. I hung up on him. That's the standard American father-son relationship for you, I guess. My dad doesn't do reason. He just wants me to get married and start producing children so he could be a doting grandfather. My happiness? It never really enters the equation. On the third day, they escalated. Jenna and her parents teamed up with my parents, and the whole posse stormed my office. They marched through the main workspace like an invading army and burst into my office. I was in the middle of going over the details of a new talent contract with Megan. Jenna, dressed to the nines, took one look at Megan, and her sweet smile twisted into a mask of pure rage. She clicked across the floor in her high heels, strode right up to Megan, grabbed a fistful of her hair, and delivered 2 hard slaps across her face. What the hell are you doing? I was livid. I jumped up and pulled Megan behind me. Are you okay? I whispered to her. Let me handle this. Megan looked up, bright red handprints already forming on her cheeks. But she just nodded and stepped back. Cole Evans, I'm ordering you to fire this homewrecker right now. Jenna shrieked. You've been a CEO for what, a couple of years? And you've already got yourself a little secretary? What, are you trying to live out some online cliche? The powerful boss and his little plaything? She sneered. It's true what they say. The second a man gets a little money, he turns into a pig. An endless stream of poison poured from her lips. I slammed my hand on the desk. Enough. Jenna, who the hell do you think you are, coming in here and ordering me around? I was never some polished intellectual. I was just a guy who caught a lucky break on the internet, made some money, and started a company. Cursing didn't exactly weigh on my conscience. I usually kept a lid on it, but right now I couldn't hold back. This woman was completely unhinged. And then she started to cry. She actually started crying. Cole, I love you so much, she sobbed. Have you forgotten? On our wedding day, I promised you we would just postpone it for a year. I agreed to your proposal to save your career. And what do? She wailed. I come back, and you're with another woman. How could you do this to me? 1,000 F-bombs went off in my head. Had this woman been watching too many bad TV dramas? Was this the CEO, his runaway bride, and the baby she had for another man? Did she really think the entire world revolved around her? I didn't say anything. I was too furious to speak. In her warped reality, my silence must have looked like guilt, because what she said next was astonishing. Since you seem to realize you were wrong, I'm willing to marry you. But on top of the house and cars being in my name, you'll give me a $50,000 check. Then I'll agree to the wedding. What? A woman who just had another man's baby not only had the nerve to come crawling back, but was now shamelessly demanding money from me. For a second, I regretted having ears. Was this real life? Was there any justice in the world? Megan had a law degree, though she didn't practice. A lot of the company's paperwork had to be vetted by her before I'd sign. I turned to her. Legally speaking, if I hit her right now, how much do you think I'd have to pay in damages? Before Megan could answer, I rolled up my sleeves. "For Christ's sake, get security up here," I yelled. "We'll do $50,000 worth of damage. Megan, you keep track. Let me know when we're close to 50 grand. With people this crazy, my short fuse was never going to hold. After giving Megan her instructions, I grabbed a handful of Jenna's long hair and, without a moment's hesitation, slapped her hard across the face. The crack echoed in the silent office. Everyone froze. Jenna clutched her cheek, her eyes wide with disbelief. You hit me? Why do you look so surprised?" I said, then slapped her again with the back of my hand. "That one was for Megan. This one's for me." Seeing his daughter get hit, Jenna's dad saw red and squared up like he was going to fight me. My own dad, to his credit, immediately grabbed him and held him back. But my mom was caught off guard, and Jenna's mom took the opportunity to rush at me. I pushed Jenna away and caught her mother's wrist as she tried to slap me. Under the shocked gazes of everyone in the room, I hit her too. Now, everyone except Megan was completely stunned. My mom finally found her voice. "Cole, are you out of your mind? You can't hit your elders." Jenna's mom, her eyes red with fury, looked like she was ready to tear me apart. Thankfully, security arrived just in time and restrained all three of them. Only then did I calmly pick up the manila folder from my desk and hand it to my mother. "Mom, Dad, you should both read this." After my mom finished, her face turned to stone. She turned on Jenna's mother. "I treated you like family, and you played me for a fool," she said, her voice dripping with ice. "You took $20,000 to convince my son's fiancée to run out on her wedding day and have a baby for some dying man." My father, looking confused, took the file. His expression grew darker with every page he turned. My mom let out a bitter laugh. "Jenna, what were you thinking? Did you think my son was so desperate that no one else would have him? Postpone the wedding for a year. A 1-year test of my son's loyalty. Is this how you test him? Or did you just assume he couldn't live without you? You people came to my house this morning, screaming and making a scene, making all the neighbors think my son was a cheater. And you want $50,000? Why not just ask for $1 million while you're at it?" My mom is the type who rarely argues, but when she does, it's like a machine gun that never stops. Jenna's face was beet red. Her father was speechless. But her mother, refusing to miss an opportunity to cause trouble, actually pushed her face toward me, completely shameless. "So what?" she shrieked. "Is it illegal for my daughter to have a baby without being married? And what about you hitting me and my daughter? I'll call the cops, and you'll be paying our medical bills." It was only then that I truly understood how Jenna could do something so baffling. With a mother whose moral compass was this broken, it was no surprise the daughter was capable of such madness. My last shred of patience evaporated. I waved a dismissive hand at the security guards. "Get them out of here." Without their shouting, the office was finally quiet. My parents, aware that Megan was still in the room, didn't say much more to me. They offered a few words of comfort and then left. I turned to Megan, my feelings a complicated knot. "Sorry you had to see that mess. Let me take you to an urgent care, get that cheek looked at." She shook her head. "It's fine. It's not a big deal. Maybe not a big deal medically, but she was a young woman who had been assaulted twice in my home, my office, because of my psycho ex. As the person at the center of it, I had to do something." I thought for a moment. "Okay, how about this? I'm taking you to the doctor, and next month you're getting a raise. And please, don't let this get to you. I need you here." Megan rolled her eyes. "Do I look like I'm hurting for cash?" And with that, she turned and walked out of my office, leaving me completely baffled. Are there really people in this world who don't want a raise? I shook my head and forced myself to focus on work. I thought that was the end of it. I thought the saga of Jenna was finally over. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I was served with legal papers. When I read the contents, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Jenna was suing me, using our engagement as grounds to demand a division of my premarital assets. Let me repeat that, premarital assets. When I saw those words, my brain short-circuited. I'm not even married, I thought. How can she demand a share of my property? I immediately called Megan into my office. She explained that, under very specific and unusual circumstances, premarital assets could indeed be subject to division. This was getting into complicated legal territory that was way over my head. My brain felt like it was about to explode. "Just give me the bottom line," I said. Under what circumstances could she possibly get her hands on my money? Megan sighed. Did you two have any kind of written agreement? Did you sign any sort of contract with her? My heart sank. I slapped my thigh. We did. A year ago, when I was getting dragged through the mud online, I signed an agreement with her to get out of it. It said that if she agreed to a public engagement and wedding announcement, I'd give her half ownership of the condo, the one I bought for us to live in. Megan's brow furrowed. If that's the case, this could be tricky. From a certain point of view, she fulfilled her end of the bargain. But we never got the license. I argued. She's the one who ran out. She's the reason I had to completely rebrand my career. And that counts for nothing. It's complicated, Cole, Megan said. It's not about what you think is fair. Don't panic yet, she added. Let me see what I can do. But I'm worried she has another card up her sleeve. You need to be prepared. I leaned back in my chair, completely floored. I had a whole relationship with Jenna where we never went further than holding hands, and now, after she'd gone off and had a baby with another man, she could come back and sue me over a contract? You had to hand it to her. She was trying to get paid from both ends. But I wasn't going down without a fight. There was no way in hell she was getting a single penny from me. I signed the paperwork to retain Megan as my legal counsel, giving her full authority to handle the case. I handed over all my financial records, purchase agreements, everything. Megan's prediction was spot on. Jenna had another ace. About a week later, I was walking through the office when I noticed the employees were all staring at me with weird expressions. I stopped and asked one of the younger staff members what was going on. She silently handed me her phone. A headline blazed across the screen. The LA influence scene is messier than you think. Did a top influencer turned CEO force an employee into a sham marriage to save his career? Below the headline was a long, rambling post, a classic social media takedown. It detailed a completely fictional story of how I coerced poor, innocent Jenna into a fake marriage to salvage my public image, then cruelly cast her aside after I successfully transitioned into a powerful CEO. And now, the post claimed I was cheating on her with my assistant, Megan, while trying to leave Jenna with nothing. And there were pictures. Jenna was playing for keeps. I have no idea where she got them, but they were all photos of Megan and me. None of them were explicit, but they were all taken from clever angles to make them look as intimate and incriminating as possible. Worse, someone had leaked the security footage from the motel. There it was in grainy black and white. Megan, in her sweatsuit and damp hair, carrying a bag of takeout into my room. And then, footage of her leaving in the dead of night, looking flustered and hurried, like a mistress sneaking away from a married man's bed. I laughed out loud. It was just too absurd. The young employee wrung her hands. We all know you've never been married, Mr. Evans, she said, trying to be comforting. So, don't be angry. She hesitated, her eyes darting around. Just between us, she whispered. Are you and Megan really a thing? I was speechless. Get back to work. The story gave me a brief, unwanted moment of trending on Twitter. I figured it was baseless nonsense and didn't bother to issue a public statement. But then, the other influencer from my original scandal a year ago decided to jump into the fray. Her management released a statement demanding that I publicly address the old rumors and compensate her for years of damages. What damages? According to her, after our scandal, she lost followers, her career stalled, and she faded from the public eye. Meanwhile, I had successfully pivoted and was still thriving in the industry. She had actually approached me a year ago, wanting to capitalize on the drama by staging a public scene where she would crash my wedding to Jenna. I had turned her down flat. I felt marriage wasn't a joke, and at the time, Jenna and I were in a real relationship. Maybe she was still bitter, or maybe she was just desperate for another shot of fame. In an age where attention is currency, there's no shortage of people willing to do anything for clicks. Thanks to the combined efforts of Jenna and this other influencer, I finally hit the top of the Twitter trends. Unfortunately, it was for all the wrong reasons. The company took a direct hit. Our creators' shopping live streams were flooded with trolls. They weren't buying. They were mass reporting the streams for violations. The comment sections on our sponsored posts were toxic wasteland. As a result, our brand partners started pulling out. The company was in serious trouble. Megan was swamped with my lawsuit and couldn't handle the PR crisis. But I wasn't completely out of options. That manila folder, that was my counterattack. First, I needed to personally investigate this Kevin guy. I took a few of my male employees with me and went on a fact-finding mission. Kevin, it turned out, was already dead. He had passed away a month ago. The interesting part? Jenna had abandoned their 1-year-old son to come back and try to marry me. Kevin's family didn't seem to care much about that, but they weren't cooperating with me either. They kept dropping hints that they wanted something from me. What something? I asked them carefully. They told me that for $20,000, they would be happy to provide a statement confirming Jenna's story. Just as I was considering it, Megan called in a panic. She warned me that if I paid them, it would look like a bribe, and their testimony would be worthless in court. It might even be used against me. I didn't need her warning. I wasn't going to pay them a dime. Life was full of sharks. I needed evidence to save my company, but I wasn't a fool. If I gave them that money, it would be like I'd paid for Jenna to go have a baby with her high school sweetheart. But then a breakthrough. Megan got in touch with the private investigator she had originally hired. It turned out he had a lot more evidence than what was in the initial file. He had hospital records of Jenna giving birth, financial statements showing a $20,000 payment into her mother's account. Everything. Armed with the PI's evidence and the original file, I had Megan draft an official public statement. Within hours, the story exploded online again. The narrative flipped, and then it flipped again. As the person at the center of it, it was just a nightmare. But for the internet, which lives for gossip and drama, it was the best show in town. Everything started moving in the right direction. Business at the company started to recover. As for Jenna's lawsuit, Megan handled it brilliantly. Bolstered by the overwhelming public opinion in my favor, the judge ruled that the conditions of our premarital contract had not been met and were therefore void. I was more than satisfied with the result. In fact, the whole ordeal brought a flood of new business to the company. The traffic was insane. A director even called and offered me a cameo in a movie, playing a character whose story was suspiciously similar to mine. The day I came back to the office after filming, I saw her from a block away. Jenna, standing outside the building, waiting for me. She was holding her 1-year-old son. The moment she saw me, she ran over, tears streaming down her face, begging me to have mercy. She asked me why I was trying to ruin her life, why I was suing her for defamation. I was completely baffled. Then I saw the sly, triumphant smile on Megan's face as she stood beside me, and I understood everything. This was Megan's doing. I spread my hands in a gesture of helplessness. Sorry, that's out of my hands. You'd have to ask my lawyer, Megan Davis. You can call Jenna a lot of things, but you can't call her stupid. She turned to Megan, clutching her child, and started a new round of tearful begging, pleading for forgiveness. Megan holds a grudge, but at her core, she's a softie. In the end, she dropped the defamation suit and the claim for damages. After all that, my trust in Megan was absolute. One night, after a long dinner with clients, I was pretty drunk. Megan came to pick me up. In the car, I couldn't stop myself. I started touching her, my hands clumsy and bold. When she only offered a token resistance, I grew bolder. A year later, Megan resigned from the company. She was holding our 1-month-old son, ready to focus on being a full-time mom.